Good morning, everybody. It is Friday morning. It's a brisk 11 degrees, but it's not as cold as I thought it would be for some reason. Um, Last night I was actually quite hot in bed, which either means I'm getting sick or it's not as cold as everybody says it is. Either way, all good. I hope you're ready for a nice weekend, and I hope you have been checking out our new Gareth Cliff Daily briefing. If you haven't yet, you're in the dog box. And speaking of the dog box, let's go straight to the comments this morning because I want to see what people are talking about. Bitcoin Butt and Vyasan are busy having an argument about Bitcoin, but it's a good argument and one that we should have about whether or not stable coins, which we actually discussed on the show just the other day with a guy called Amar, who's introducing a South African Rand stable coin. Um, he brought that up while we were having our interview, and Bitcoin Butt says he's not so sure about stable coins. So he said stable coins are tied to fiat, if you go to the next comment, and can be confiscated easier than Bitcoin. You can't confiscate Bitcoin held in self custody. Sure, I don't know the answer, Bitcoin Butt. You're probably well more versed in this than I am. And in fact, Bitcoin Butt and I had a long conversation off the air one day, and he told me I should get a separate wallet for my Bitcoin. And I've got the wallet, but I got no Bitcoin. So I've got to start from scratch, which is not ideal, but I'll get to it. So I would rather trust you at this point than me, dude. And the fact is, we're going to try and get Amar back to answer some of these questions in the not too distant future. Anyway, lots of people waking up and full of beans this morning. Isn't Godongwana stealing everyone's crypto? Well, I'll tell you what is happening is Letsetsa Kganyago, who is the governor of the Reserve Bank in South Africa, put up interest rates yesterday. So if you owe money or you have a mortgage, a bond, if you have car repayments, if you have credit card debt, yeah, all of that's going to go up as of yesterday. Not the greatest news in the world. In fact, sorry, as of today. Not the greatest news in the world, but something that we all need to be aware of. There's so much going on. That's why I've got to say I'm really enjoying doing this daily briefing because it allows me to touch on stories as they happen in the news. And there's a little bit of commentary, so it's not dry and bland. We started off the week, and I think we've got a lot better. So by today's episode, which will be available just after this show ends, you should have a very good idea every day of what's going on. The idea of the podcast was because I couldn't find anything like that. Not in South Africa. There are a couple of people who do it pretty well overseas, but they tend to be hugely focused on their own countries. And I thought, there's a gap here. And if you can't find something in the market, a product, a service that you want, then the best thing you can do is make it. So that's what we've done. And I'm also happy to say that we've had thousands of people already in the course of this week who've been sampling it. It will be free for a little while yet. So if you haven't yet begun to, oh, look at that. We're at position 2 in the news category already. James, this is interesting. Where did you find that stuff? We're also at position 5 in Cyprus because there was a Cyprus election. And, again, to prove the point that this is going to be a self-selecting audience that has got all the right characteristics. Whenever I've made a move in media, it's been to make the audience smaller but better, like quality over quantity. And the Cyprus story, which makes us number 5 in Cyprus for news, is such a great example. I got a call from a friend of mine who lives in Pretoria, and she said the High Commissioner of Cyprus is listening to the daily briefing. So I'm like, yeah, good. These are the kind of people, along with all of you, that I want to be part of this new project. We've got to keep moving forward, doing things differently. Also, creating a paywall ultimately for this is not just about it paying for itself through the support that it gets from you, which I've never asked anyone to do, by the way. You'll know this if you've been around as long as the Gareth Cliff Show has been around in all its various incarnations, and there've been a lot. It's close to 20, 25 years. And in all that time, it's always been free. And I've always liked it to be free. And I didn't want to make it an expensive thing because I know people's money is tight at the moment. But what it'll do, apart from that, is, and the primary reason for doing that is to create a filter between, ordinary people who are trawling the internet for AI slop and clickbait and stuff that is designed to stimulate rather than to inform. That stuff will be removed. It'll get out of the system, which is exactly what I want to do. So if you haven't joined us yet there, please go along. All the links we posted in the description of today's episode, but I've also been posting them on my social media. And if you have any questions about that, just send me an email, gareth@garethcliff.com. That easy. One word, garethcliff.com. Okay, very good. So let's crack on. I see Benjamin Karpinski, I almost said Netanyahu, is up and about this morning. Hey, Ben.
Yeah, hi guys. How's it going?
There he is. I heard a rude comment or two from people last week that they said they're sick of you sitting there with your legs spread like an OnlyFans girl every morning with a cat on your lap. And I thought, well, if it sells, and also we don't often have enough pussy on this show, so I wouldn't be too upset if that were the case.
Yeah, well, you can't have your legs spread and have a cat in your lap. So pick your fight, fuckers. But yeah,
Well,
Luna's here.
I'm not the one who said it, but there is this thing called manspreading, Ben, and it was a big deal back in 2020. A lot of feminists said manspreading is a privileged thing, and maybe that's why you do it, just to, give them the middle finger.
Yeah, guys. Well, look, it's a remote show. Obviously, I'm sitting in a part of my lounge here. Luna's always around me. The beautiful sun's about to rise. So I'm in a very happy place here. It's not so cold, as Gareth said. Yeah.
Yeah, don't mess with people's equilibrium. If everybody has a different factory setting, and part of the reason that this show has lasted as long as it has, and we've got the amazing audience that we've got, is because people are real. This is how we are. We don't pretend. We don't put on a show. The show is on, but it's not like we get dressed up and change our personalities so that we can be different people when we've got a microphone in front of us.
Yeah, I mean, in full disclosure, when this thing happens, I wake up and I just basically turn the lights on. These are the clothes that I've slept in. I have put an Arsenal scarf around me for a little bit of accent.
No, maybe it's because I'm very old school about this, but I always feel like it would be inappropriate to not at least wear fresh clothes and wash my hair and brush my teeth. I couldn't do that.
No, I got that. I mean, I wash my face. I have a bit of a go on the hair, but I could not complete and that's a roll out, but it's pretty close.
I'm so excited. Do you know who's back after years of not being around? James, go to number 6 and show Ben. This is excellent news, and I feel like it's a victory against stupidity and craziness all over the world. If you're on the YouTube channel where we are most of the time, then you will see a picture on your screen of somebody who we haven't seen in years. And he has returned. We've been saying he almost to mock him for a long time. But Bruce Jenner is back. Bruce Jenner, not Caitlyn Jenner. Bruce Jenner arrived at a political rally.
Yeah, that's an AI photo.
Is it really?
You can tell a mile away that's AI.
I don't think so, Ben. I think Bruce Jenner is making a comeback. I think Caitlyn's a thing of the past. I really do. I think the craziness is melting away. Have you noticed? This is something that look, whether it's AI or not, I'm going to believe it.
AI, but carry on.
Oh, come on. The other thing I've noticed in the last couple of days is that the climate change people have gone very quiet, and they've been quiet for a couple of months. I saw Al Gore, in a desperate attempt to save his reputation, well, whatever reputation he's still got, if people even remember who Al Gore is, he announced last week, we've got to be more worried about global cooling than global warming. So these guys are just jumping from pillar to post, trying to latch on to the next thing. They've all been so thoroughly discredited. I saw even the United Nations, who are always the slowest and the worst to catch up. And when they do, it's usually along some agenda as well. Even the UN panel on climate change announced that all of the predictions that were made 6 to 10 years ago turned out to be completely false. They've essentially, what they're admitting there, and what all of these other climate change people, the hysterical ones. I mean, obviously
Yeah.
there are weather phenomena that are built in, and the Earth is always going through short and long cycles, right? But the hysterics, the ones who were screaming about, oh, the world's going to end in 12 years. I remember Alexandra Ocasio Cortez, who's easily one of the dumbest members of Congress in America. She said a few years ago, we've only got 12 years and then the planet is dead. And all of those people have been thoroughly disabused of that notion. And I couldn't be happier about it, because the real story is that they lied and they purveyed and peddled what so many people in the media always call mis and disinformation. Well, the source of that, the people who always used to complain about mis and disinformation, turn out to be the biggest purveyors of it. No big surprise to me. How about you?
No, not the slightest, Gareth. And it's just so sad that people, I almost think it's like horror movies. You try to shock people and you try to draw them in with this crap. And it's like the car crash kind of theory. You don't want to see a car crash, but when it's there, everyone's so fascinated about it. It's like when you go to a bar and you see some drunk oaks fighting, you don't really want to see it, but when it happens, and I feel the exact same way with the climate change. It's like that we'll show these horrific videos of the ice caps melting and like polar bears swimming and all this kind of stuff. It's just lame. It's just people are so fixated about having to have something to say the whole time, which I know sounds quite strange for guys on podcasts. But I think it really comes back to that. People are just running out of things to do because there's no actual quality and substance with these people. Al Gore, what was he really famous for prior to that?
Being vice president and losing to George W. Bush?
Exactly. So he needed something to say. So someone probably sold him, well, Al, you're pretty fucking boring. How about you try this climate change stuff? And he's like, well, that's pretty cool. And then suddenly he was hanging out with actors. Suddenly people wanted to listen to what he had to say. Suddenly he was a person. And then Alexander called the ex-waitress. Sorry, I'm not trying to be disparaging.
Barista, yeah.
I struggle with her name. Same thing. Like, she needs to stick within this kind of thing, right? She needs a sort of go-to personality card. It's not like they have anything.
Well, you see, this is the other thing that confounds me, is like when you've been vice president of the United States or president of the United States, you should be at a point where you don't have to prove anything to anyone anymore, where you can actually just like go and retire, be with your grandchildren, enjoy the and you occasionally people will pay you a huge amount of money to pitch up at an event and make a speech, which is a bonus. And there are all kinds of built-in perks to having been a president once, but your hard work is done. And I think people get addicted. I've seen it in entertainment as well. I'm sure you have, where there are people who they just love the attention. And it boggles my mind that, for example, there are presidents who just disappear and you don't hear much about them. I mean, you don't really see a lot of George W. Bush. He occasionally will. He's on X, for example, and when there's a big disaster, he'll send his commiserations and do like appropriate things that you almost like a king would do in a whenever there's an earthquake. King Charles and Queen Camilla send a royal telegram expressing our extraordinary unhappiness about what's happened. But you don't really hear a lot from George W. Bush. Is not like trying to put himself front and center the whole time. But some of them, like Barack Obama, it just seems he cannot get enough attention. He's doing interview after interview. And I know he's obviously in high demand. Former presidents have a lot to say about their term of office. And, people always want to know, what do they think is happening now and where do they think the country's going? But you should be the one, if you've been the president, to say, you know what, guys, I've written a ton of books. I've had to be in the public glare for, in Obama's case, 8 years. I don't want to be doing this anymore. There's enough. I've done enough stuff. There's so much material that you can mine. I shouldn't be doing this. Someone in their lives needs to say to them, hey, listen, you're an older man now. You got your your kids, your grandkids in some cases. Just go and spend time with them. To be a pillar of the community in your own little neighborhood, because you've done it all.
Yeah, it's look. I don't think I made the point very well around like, but there's some sort of a demand for this kind of crap. You know, people who want to be in politics but have no understanding around it. Obama's an easy sell for them. It's like, well, I can relate with him because he's so diplomatic and he's black, and I need to know more black people. People like gravitate towards the shit. So these people keep talking because the demand is kind of there. So people keep demanding a phrase out of Obama because it's like this. It's like this safe place for an authority. It's like no one demands a phrase out of Meghan Markle anymore. So she will fall away. She'll fall away
Yeah.
fast. Whereas
Well, I
Obama
mean,
will still be there because people still like want to have some sort of source of reference from him because he was the guy.
yeah, it's just it's very unbecoming for a man, especially as he gets older, to keep seeking attention. I say for a man especially is because I think it's a bigger negative to a guy to be a cloying, desperate attention seeker. You know, with girls, I would be more forgiving, and I don't know whether that's just my own personal bias or whether I apply different standards to the sexes. But to me, very few things are as unbecoming and unattractive in a man as like desperate attention seeking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a weird one, hey, Gareth, because if people can really scrutinize anybody who does things publicly, they can say, oh, well, you do this mostly for attention seeking, for clout, and all these kind of things. But I always feel like there's a big difference between adding value and seeking attention. And yeah, you're right. Those kind of people, they're very much on that sort of side of the spectrum, and it's very clear now.
Well, Future Looks Bright 2026, love the name, says, is it because Obama's actually still running the Democrat Party behind the scenes? We
Well,
know he
there's
was a
also
puppet
that.
master behind, but there is that. That's a fantastic point, and I'm glad you made it. That's very, very good. Also, you know, his wife. We talk about how men it's unbecoming, but she's got her own podcast now. I mean, again, like to what avail? Like, is it going to make her? She doesn't need more money. And all she does in this podcast, from the people I've heard that I follow on social media who've bothered to listen to, I've never listened to an episode, but apparently all Michelle does in every episode is like say horrible things about Barack, like bring him down, like make fun of him, complain about him. And I just think this is not stuff anybody should hear. You always hear about these high powered people, these celebrities, rich people, you know, publicly facing individuals who have like a team of brand experts who advise them. Surely someone would have said to Michelle, hey, you know, Michelle, you've been the first lady of the United States, and there's no reason on God's green earth that you need to have a podcast.
Yeah, well, that's the PR team, hey, Gareth. So basically, to make, okay, this, again, completely my view and speculation, but I think it's the PR teams that go, okay, so for Barack to be relevant and still have a voice, we need to further humanize him by Big Mike having a little dig at him, like, you know, like it's that, oh, you know, it's so funny. My wife says this about me. And it's just bullshit, basically. But it's that sort of perception of like, oh, they're normal, just like us. So with Big Mike having a fucking bitch about Barack and that kind of stuff, it's like, okay, he's not so, he's the next president, but he's also like one of us. His wife's having a moan about the dishcloths and stuff.
You're probably right. I mean, I think you've cut to the chase here, and I didn't think of that as the PR team needs to justify its own existence as well, because they're being paid money, right? So they come up with these cuck ideas.
Bigger picture.
But they would probably also want to look at the results of those ideas of theirs, which are cuck, and go, well, Michelle's podcast's not doing well. And the response from the public has been, why are you making your husband a laughing stock and trying to take the piss out of him? It hasn't been, oh, Barack's so much more human now because Michelle was talking about how, you know, he doesn't lift the toilet seat or whatever she complains about. I just think somebody's got to pay attention to the results. And you know, there's so much going on in the world right now that proves to me that certain people in society are so isolated from the experience of normal people that they're not listening. They're not paying attention. They don't know what ordinary people's lives are because they live in this world. You can see it with the Silicon Valley guys. I mean, I listened to the All In podcast, which is a great show. You know, there are three really smart people and then Jason. But a friend of mine was in Dallas the other day and said he met Chamath Palihapitiya, who's one of the guys who does the show. And Chamath is super smart. And my friend reported the same thing, which is not a surprise. But, you know, because they're Silicon Valley tech billionaires, these guys don't understand some of the basic thing that ordinary people go through. They don't sit in traffic or fly on commercial airlines or worry about the price of something because they have endless money. They have private jets. They hardly ever leave a well curated environment. So these guys are just in a different they're in a different universe to the rest of us. And the same goes for politicians all over the world. We know that our own minister, former minister Naledi Pandor, was robbed in her house the other day. And that's probably the first time in a while that anyone at that level with those kinds of connections has had to deal. And I'm sorry. I mean, I said that I thought it was an awful thing to happen, and it is. And I don't wish it on anybody, much as I would disagree with just about everything Naledi Pandor believes in. But it's a horrible thing to happen, right? And when reality comes into those people's worlds, they're so shocked by it. They're like, "Well, I didn't know." Oh, it's because you're not paying attention.
Yeah, it's a weird one, that. I think people are so fixated on these lives that they can kind of curate and control. You know, like this week, just touching on this kind of thing, there was so much heat around Stephen Bartlett, that Diary of a CEO guy.
Because I saw that.
Did you see that?
Just explain to everybody what it was about, because I thought this was pretty fascinating too.
So it's funny because I can relate so much to like so much that goes in this sort of realm, but he said that because he drank a few glasses of wine, his whole week was completely ruined because his optimization strategies were all like, scuppered because he felt hungover the next day, and then he couldn't podcast as well, and then he couldn't go to gym, and then his sleep score was fucked. And it's, as much as he's being honest about his life and what he does, which he's totally entitled to, it kind of shined a light on where humans really are now. And that's actually fragile. It's actually fragile. Totally. Yesterday, I went to a golf day. I had 2 beers. I went to bed a little bit later. And I feel less well. When I was in Sun City recently, I probably had like 6 beers. I felt like shit. But it's life, I don't regret any of those kind of things. I know the next day is not going to be optimized like it normally is, but I want those days. I want those moments because it's exactly about interacting with other people. So all these podcast guys, they've got to this point where, just like the people you were mentioning about not knowing reality, is that when you fixate so much on optimization, you actually don't live. You're becoming a test case of yourself in some ways. Like Brian Johnson, we know that's his life, because that's how he adds value.
Did you see he appeared on some TV show with an umbrella? Apparently he walks around with it. He walks around on a lovely day with the umbrella because he said any amount of UV will age his skin. And I just thought, what kind of life do you have? And I've often felt this with people who they become so extreme in one particular discipline or area of singular focus, and these people, they freeze their meals on a Sunday, for example, and they know exactly what they're eating every night. And it by Thursday, it probably starts tasting like fucking air. But there's no enjoyment in life. And quite apart from the enjoyment factor, you need to build some resilience. The problem with the Stephen Bartlett story, in my mind, is that you have this guy who's trying to optimize everything, which is fine. I mean, who would have a problem with that? Try to be. What are the Gen Zs and the millennials say? Be the best version of yourself, right? Live your best life. So that's cool. I'm with you. I'm on side. If you're improving in some way, I'm delighted for you. That's terrific. But it seems to me that if 2 glasses of wine floor you and they ruin the whole week after you've had these, by the way, 2 glasses of wine. I mean, there are housewives in Bryanston at the moment who are going, what the
They're
fuck
rich.
is wrong with 2 glasses of wine?
They're already on
had
their first.
Chardonnay. They're on to bottle 3 by like 5 p.m. So
Yeah.
I just think
So
it's weak. It's weakness. It's a
It
lack
is.
of resilience. And if you've become so optimized that the slightest infraction on your own ridiculous self-discipline is going to throw out everything, and you're going to lose a week of your life. That's what he said, right? He said he felt like he made a terrible mistake.
It's
It's weakness.
podcast as well, which in itself was pretty much like the defining line there, because podcasting has become such a thing. But look, Gareth, it's like all things, right?
Couldn't
it's about
podcast
having
well.
it's about having to understand where the levels of anything are. I think that's what makes a good human being, is that we can all go to extremes, but none of that is good for you. Like on this show, right? We say whatever we want and we swear. We use crude, vulgar language, but we're not saying it all the fucking time. Like if we were to be extreme, the show would be silly, okay? Because the guys are swearing the whole time. It's the same when it comes for health and fitness and all that kind of shit. When it becomes the absolute every single breath that you take and every move that you make, people will be watching you, to use a Sting reference. And then they watch you and they scrutinize you. It's like, this guy's not fucking living. He's basically just analyzing, scrutinizing, and fixating.
Yeah.
And it's a very worrying thing, because it's like, what was that old fable? I mean, you know these kind of things. The kid that looked and saw himself in the river, the reflection.
Narcissist. That's narcissist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Narcissism. So it's another form of that. It's just a chattier version, basically. It's all it is. It's kind of falling into the same thing, just with 7,000 words. And the whole thing about Brian Johnson, sorry, just to finish off with Brian Johnson, is that he's dedicated his life, because that's like his science, right? It's like when people want to find out, like, how do I solve fucking renal cancer, whatever.
Sure.
Everyone has like a thing they go to. So Brian Johnson is that. And he is, again, extreme, but he publishes that work and he makes people understand it. And then that's okay. But like, we're not trying to be Brian Johnson. We're going to learn from him. I think a lot of people are trying to be that. Learn from the dude. Don't try to be him.
Like I support Elon's attempts to get to Mars, but I'm in no hurry to go to Mars myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so I had so many interesting meetings with such cool people this week, and just my brain is full, which is what I want, right? Like to me, that's the drug I'm after. And one of the people I saw was Muzi Kuzwayo. I had coffee with him on Wednesday morning, and we were talking about how the idea of people as brands is just a terrible idea. I mean, Muzi's way more well-read, well-informed, and experienced on this subject than I am. And he said people can't be brands because people change all the time. And you are not even, there's nothing about you that you would recognize today if I put you, put these thoughts, your current mindset, the way that you feel about the world, if I put that into the 20-year-old version of you, you wouldn't recognize it. And a brand is really, it can be, and we're going to talk to your mate Mike Sharman later, who I think is also very, very smart when it comes to this stuff. But like this cuck idea of somebody on social media creating their brand, and I'm like, people don't have brands. You wake up one day and you haven't had your cup of coffee, or you're going through a breakup or whatever. Don't tell me that your brand is consistent. You're not a thing. You're an organism that changes all the time. You can't be a brand. It's a dumb idea.
Well, it's an idea which made a lot of sense with how we all became broadcasters. Like, if you think, Gareth, going back to the whole thing about 20 years, look at what's happened in 20 years with humans and how humans can make money, how they interact, and how they can influence the course of their surroundings. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should call ourselves brands, but we are extensions of things that we never thought we could be, and that's all because of the internet. And then we learn, and then we move on. But I think when people want to go, okay, you can't be a brand, it's not about then targeting people and saying, yeah, you motherfuckers, I told you were wrong. They were trying something, they were learning something, but you need to evolve. And I think that's what it goes back to is like people must celebrate being people. We must just celebrate being people because we're flawed, we try things, we get things wrong. And ultimately, if we focus on that, we can be a bit more human to each other as well.
Very important thing today. You reminded me. We celebrated this week Harambe. We didn't celebrate. We memorialized him.
Yeah,
and let's all just take a moment. You remember the amazing campaign "Dicks Out for Harambe." For people who don't know, Ben, just remind us of the story of Harambe the gorilla.
Well, Harambe, apart from being plucked from local captivity and thrown into the Cincinnati Zoo like a prisoner, was just like having a normal day. Was just having a normal day, and some horribly parented child who was unattended managed to climb into Harambe's peaceful quarters, and Harambe was then forced with babysitting. Now, I don't know about you, Gareth, but I don't want someone coming into my apartment and saying, can you look after my shitty child for the next hour while I go smoke or talk shit? And Harambe, doing what he could, Gareth, doing what he could. I mean, he was a bit older. He wasn't in the parenting group anymore. Had to then look after this kid. So he pulled the kid around, tried to show him the enclosure, all very nice. And people got really upset. Harambe was just trying to do what he could. And people were like, oh, look at the gorilla. He's going to do bad things to the kid. Harambe is just trying to make peace here, okay? What did they do? They killed him. The outrage, it wasn't enough. And there it was, 10 years ago to this day, 2016. Yesterday. Harambe was slain for just trying to be a decent oak. And there he was, dead. Yeah. Dead.
Well, do we know what's happened with that kid that was saved, that Harambe had to lose his life for?
I don't know. He's 13, probably not amounting to much. Still got shitty parents, probably, who are blaming Harambe. Meanwhile, Harambe was like, just trying to make the most of the situation here. So I don't think, like with something so tragic, it's difficult to ever say, okay, well, the dust has settled now on Harambe, because it hasn't. The world's the worst place after he was killed. But I think we can look at this retrospectively and say, like, it goes back to what we've been saying from day one, Gareth. Terrible parenting makes terrible people, which makes terrible situations happen. I'm not saying Harambe would still be alive now. I'm not saying Harambe would be having a podcast now. But the thing is, he didn't need to be killed.
There are two sports questions we need to address quite importantly here. So first of all, Ponster 8 says, it's not that. Ben, are you following the NBA Finals? Who should anyone put money on?
Guys, I'm not, but my friend Sandile Shangazi, he is, of course, full on into the NBA. As you know, I like my sleep, and I don't have enough bandwidth for basketball. So follow Shaz LNS on all social media. He lives that stuff.
And then someone else is asking for you to please comment on the upcoming White House UFC event. I think it's Bitcoin But.
Yeah, I agree with Joe Rogan. I don't think it's a good thing. I don't think national monuments should be sullied by sporting events. It's a weird one, guys, because like the UFC is obviously run and owned by Dana White, who's good friends with Donald Trump. Donald Trump likes MMA. He's always been an MMA fan. It's a sport that he likes. But the whole thing about the White House, is it used as like a sort of propaganda device? Is it political? It has to be by pure association. And also, it's an outside event. Dana White says he doesn't do outside events. He doesn't do arena stadium shows. It just seems like it just seems weird. It just seems, I'm not for it.
Vyasan wants to know, will you please tell us about the 15-year-old IPL player?
Wow. I don't know where to start, Vyasan. Imagine being 15 and you can take the highest level of the game by the balls and do what you want with it. Gareth, this kid, I mean, like cricket's changed a hell of a lot. When we interviewed Adam Donald for the show, I think it was last year, he said the thing about cricket nowadays is that people are completely fearless, and it's changed the entire course of the game. So this kid's 15, okay? So in the 15 years of life, what do you learn? Nothing. You're still learning so much. You're still physically developing. He's 15 and he's opening the batting and he's slutting all these oaks around, the best bowlers in the world. I mean, I think it was on, what is it, Wednesday. He got 97 of 29 balls. Just stood there. Basically, he just stood there, dicks out for Harambe, swinging on everything. And yeah, he's played for the Rajasthan Royals, but 15, and he's accomplished. And this is what the Indian Premier League is doing: is creating a fearless platform for youngsters to go and do their thing. Because normally, if you're a youngster coming into international setup, you need structures around you. Sometimes you're not in a great team, so you don't have the freedom to do what you want. But because the IPL is built the way it is, every single team has stars. Every single team has international superstars, local superstars. And some teams go, well, this kid's been beating up his friends at school. Let's give him a try. Oh, he does exactly the same to grown adults. Yeah, it really is something to look at. I mean, I find the IPL now almost unwatchable because it's too batsman friendly. It's like the bowlers have just become bowling machines. But still, there's something to hugely admire about a 15-year-old kid doing what he does.
Yeah, Future Looks Bright says he made 172 not out in the Under-19 World Cup final last year. Amazing.
Yeah, it wasn't fair. It was humiliating to all these people. At least now he's embarrassing adults.
Hey, aren't they doing those new games where people are allowed to take performance-enhancing drugs?
Yeah, that was last week, and that was such an anticlimax.
Really? I saw like there was some noise about it before, but I didn't hear anything afterwards, so I thought maybe they'd cancelled it.
No, it was the enhanced games. And I think what we've always wanted out of the enhanced games is people to be hugely muscular, literally walking onto the arena with like injections still in their butt cracks. But it was never going to be like that. It's a lot more scientific. And a lot of the drug use is about recovery. So the guys aren't going to look like Ben Johnson in Calgary. And they didn't run like him either. So just to use the example of the 100 meters, they had a guy who was apparently meant to break the world record. And they had a bunch of mixed matching oaks in the 100 meters. And he ran a 9.8. So to put it into context, Usain Bolt's 9.58 is the world record. I think he ran it in 2009. I don't see anybody getting it. 9.8 would have maybe won this guy the Olympic gold in Paris. He might have.
Okay.
So it was an incredible time. Sure. Amazing time. But yeah, not really here. The only world record that was broken, Gareth, was a swimmer. And people say the only real reason that he broke the record by 0.001 of a second, whatever it was, is because he was using the illegal swimsuit. So there was a time where the swimmers were allowed to wear full body suits, and obviously the aerodynamics of that, the lack of drag. So it's more about the fact that they wore the suit rather than taking the juice. Look, there's just no substitute.
That's amazing. So in other words, a real unenthusiastic, disappointing, damp squib.
Only one world record broken. Nothing was that intense. Look, it just goes to show that you can't just grab someone, feed them whatever you want, and think they're going to be incredible. The world's best at everything are the world's best at everything for various reasons. Like if I went on all kinds of steroids and all kinds of things now, I wouldn't be significantly better at physical pursuits because I'm an average athlete. I'm an average person. So you're only going to get world records if you take the best and say, put this in your body as well.
Okay, so speaking about sportsmen, there was also, a lot of people went crazy about a bunch of stuff on the internet this week, but this one I know isn't AI. There's a picture of Rafa Nadal with, who's the other dude who was such a big deal? Federer, Roger Federer, the same time, right? The picture was taken of the two of them, and really Federer looks exactly the same as he did. These guys are both kings of the court. Unbelievable record on both parts. People were always saying, who's the GOAT? I don't really care, but this picture came out. James, just show them number 4. And there was some proper outrage. I don't know whether these people expect everybody to stay the same or not, whether they're truly shocked. But Rafa Nadal, he's in his 30s as far as I can tell. And that's him on the left. He looks he looks very different. He doesn't look good. You know, we often bring up celebrities on the show and how they've maybe gone for too much plastic surgery, or they're on one of these weight loss drugs and it makes them look all gaunt. But a couple of people like, what's going on with Rafa?
Well, he never had a good build. He had a very strong left arm, and he had the hungriest asshole in all of tennis because he was always pulling his underwear out of it. And guys, when you stop doing exercise the frequency that he does, he's going to lose muscle mass. He never had a good build. He always had, whenever he took his shirt off to change his shirt or whatever it was, the guy always had a horrendous dad bod. I think the fact that he's still slender is really great. He's doing well.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, not to pile on him, but I just thought it would be interesting. You just gave us the best summary of the problem. Hungriest asshole.
He did. Before every point, he was yanking that shit out of his crack. Every point.
All right. I found someone who's competition for you now that you've covered some of the sport from this week for us. I found a content. This guy is the new South African sports content creator. And I feel, Ben, you need to really up your game because he could be the one that threatens your position. Do you want to see?
Of course.
Okay, show Ben.
Cheslin Kolbe is back, guys, and this is absolutely epic news. I can't wait to see him back on South African soil, back for the Stormers, scoring tries for them, and for the Springboks as well. I do think he will play a leadership role in that backline of the Stormers, and the Stormers, they have a great backline at the moment. Guys, what do you think? The return of Cheslin Kolbe is here.
Yeah, I mean, I can't compete. That's it. Whatever number I was, Gareth, I've now gone down one.
He said in that clip, which is very short, but he said a liter sip, and then I realized no, he meant leadership role. Yeah. So it's going to take some adjustment, but you know, we may have to replace you with him eventually, Ben.
No, he's nailed it. Huh? He did in 30 seconds what sometimes I can't do in 2 minutes. You know, short content's always the most important thing. But yeah, Cheslin Kolbe back to. It's been a big week. Huh? There's a lot happening. Cheslin Kolbe coming back to the Springboks is quite a thing. Eventually, all the guys come back. How much he'll play, not entirely sure. But yeah, it's good. Huh? And the Springbok season starts July 4th. We're getting there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nonstop. Winter's not any less interesting than summer when it comes to sport these days. Okay, so I mentioned we've got Mike Sharman joining us a little bit later on. The Sharmanator, he's just fantastic. The founder and CEO of Retroviral, and we'll talk a little bit about business. We'll talk a little bit about brands and advertising and a whole lot of stuff that I think you'll be interested to hear from him on. And he's also just, I mean, Mike can talk about anything. He's a great guy. So stick around for that. He'll be joining us just after 7. All right. So Ben, you mockingly referred to my Bruce Jenner picture as AI generated lies. So I'm willing to accept that. There were a couple of people who said that there have been sightings of him across parts of LA where he's appeared as Bruce Jenner again, and people are saying he's restored his factory settings, which is a pretty funny way of looking at it. But I don't know. As far as I can tell, there's a 50-50 chance that was AI generated at this point.
Mockingly, Gareth, you're starting to sound like those Urmies who can't understand what AI is. It's a blatant AI image. You can tell there's a certain look to all these things.
You know, the cost of getting that wrong is not high. So if people think, oh, well, Gareth's really stupid for getting... Who the fuck knows what's going on in his undercarriage anyway? So it wouldn't make a difference what the face looks like. It's just a funny thing. And I do hope it's a sign, if it is true, that things are returning to sanity. That's all.
Gareth, you can't go from being the foremost presenter of male rape statistics to then just have a bit of a dash at Bruce Jenner. I mean, come on. Can we get some journalistic integrity here at least? The bar was so high last week, and then you just throw this out there. So casual.
There's a guy in the Northwest called My Soul. I don't know if you've seen him. What the fuck's going on with my camera? This thing has like got a life of its own. There's a guy called it literally went to the roof. There's a guy called My Soul who's like a huge big businessman in the Northwest province. He's made hundreds of millions, if not billions of rands, mining, industrial machinery. He's got manufacturing workshops. He owns a bunch of real estate. I mean, he's a proper property magnate and business magnate. And you know, a lot of people will say, "Oh, well, how did he get that money? Because he was born into poverty." And listen, if it's all legit, and what the hell do I know about his business dealings? It's the first I've ever heard of him this week. He's probably legit. There are lots of very smart people who've figured out a way of making enormous amounts of money. And if he's totally legit, then I wish him well. Then I'm an admirer of anybody who can make something out of nothing, right? But I do have a problem with some of the videos that, and this is what tipped me off that this guy even existed, is that he takes like a fleet of really, really, and when you talk luxury cars, we're not just talking about standard, really expensive sports cars. He gets them custom made and souped up. He's like one of those people who gets a limited edition, one of a kind Rolls Royce. And then he drives them through the Northwest province, through very poor, kind of rural, backward, shitty areas where like there's sewage flowing through the street or whatever. And all the people in the town gather to see him and or these cars. It's just a weird, very South African thing that I felt we should at least interrogate a little bit this morning. Not because it's necessarily that, you know, My Soul can drive his car wherever he wants, and maybe he's visiting family or friends there. I don't know. I'm trying to take the most generous approach I can from his point of view. The problem I have really is that these very, very low IQ people who gather around to have his fleet pass them and spray like mud up onto their, you know, pants and shirts and things as they groupie and fangirl around him. It's just a very weird South African thing. I mean, effectively what you've got here is extremely, extremely poor people. Obviously, some of whom are unemployed, because in case you didn't read the stats this week, youth unemployment in South Africa is now at the highest levels it's ever been. And you can tell also that these people are not bright, because I said low IQ. I didn't just pull that out of the sky. You'll hear a girl in this clip who goes, she doesn't know how to say Rolls Royce. She goes, there is Royales. And then she tries again, and she can't really say it properly. But I want you to see this, and then in the comments section, I want you guys to tell me what's going on there. Not so much about My Soul, because, you know, I'm kind of sick of hearing about people who are just bitter and resentful about rich people. There are going to be rich people in the world, and they're going to be richer than me and you. And if you are more obsessed with the rich than you are about your own life, you're never going to have a happy life. But I do want to talk about the people who are impressed by this in these places. And maybe I just got to like think more simply about it. But it strikes me as odd that these people are looking at this and go, and they'll do it for politicians too, by the way, who we know have been actively stealing money. So I just want to know what the psychological story here is. Take a look at the video.
My son. My what? My son. My son.
Ah, o tsonto sutlela ka mo ke. Skabzella my son.
My son. My son. My son.
Rice.
My son. My son.
Bukan.
Oh, benar good. My son. my son, my son.
Nka ena ka mokua.
Yeah, it's just weird, the contrast. I mean, I would, if I had hundreds of millions, if not billions of rands, and I would not drive a car like that through a really poor area. It's almost like you're thumbing your nose at them. But that's his prerogative, and maybe he thinks he's inspiring people. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
T-Bug Touch used to have a rally where you can only be in it if you've got 4 pipes, so like a big V8 car,
Yeah.
and you would
Yes,
drive
that's
through
right.
all these shitty towns. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I mean,
it's a weird one, Gareth. It's a weird one to look at. It's just seeing a car like that on shit roads always makes me sore in the heart, because cars like that should be. There should be nice roads if those cars exist.
you know, the dude who is standing on the side there and going, my soul, my soul. It's like his brain is stuck on repeat. He's like, my soul, my soul, my soul. You can tell that's the kind of guy who you couldn't even give him menial tasks. You'd probably fuck them up, and we wonder why our country has an unemployment issue. But it's funny to me, like some people, why would you want to thumb your nose at the poor people? You know, if that's what he's doing. Again, I'm making a lot of assumptions here, and I do want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he probably does make a difference in his community, even if it's just for the other people who are in his entourage, who live off his generosity and largesse. There are lots of people in the world who they just want to glom on to somebody else who is successful and share in the spoils. You know, there are people like that in every society. But I wonder what's going through the head of these people, they stupid people who gather on the side of the road and they're like, my soul, my soul, my soul. Like, oh, what are they hoping that he'll stop the car and throw a couple of coins out like a king would have to a peasant back in 1300? What do you think's going on in their heads, if anything?
Yeah, probably. But you know, there's also the whole thing about like the pastor of a community must have a nice car, because it's an association thing, right? Like, even though they have no connection with the wealth on display, there is I don't know, some kind of association. The fact that they even have guys driving Rolls Royces through them is better than not having Rolls Royces drive through them.
Yeah, it's almost like a big man theory. You know, the idea that we're all at base level, we're all kind of primitive, and we, even though we can't share in the joy in a material sense, we're pleased our chief, our headman has big shiny cars and, you know, a big shiny house and lots of money, and because if he looks successful, our tribe looks successful. Do you think it's something like that? Maybe
It must be. It must be. I mean, like, ultimately, all of us humans are the same, and we're all quite primal. But it's also just how bad it is. I mean, and people have the argument like, well, if he just sold one of those cars, he could have fixed the road. And I also don't think it's his problem. I don't think it's his responsibility to do that. But there's also something that's just it just feels so shitty that you can be so poor that the one thing that gives you joy is seeing someone so completely out of your reach and being rich, and that gives you a moment. Again, it's such a weird thing to see. It's a weird thing to see and try to comprehend what's really going on there.
Yeah. God wants you to have this Rolls Royce, so give me your Sasa money every month, says Future Looks Bright. That's spot on too. And listen, I mean, for a lot of people, I suppose, you know, hope is the greatest gift they can receive, and it costs nothing to give them hope. And if they see someone driving in that car, they think, well, he lives near me, or he grew up in the same village, or it makes people feel connected to it somehow. And maybe connection is kind of all that it is. I certainly, I don't have malice towards these people. I just feel it's a strange thing. You know, it's just as terrible to be jealous and to be openly jealous. You know, if your friend gets something really cool or does something really cool and then you can't be happy for him, is as bad as celebrating someone just because they flaunt their material wealth. Neither is necessarily a morally superior stance to take. Yonder says it's the mentality that's been instilled in South Africa that there are people that you must look up to who are better than you. Hence, people have no aspirations in the country, and the ANC uses that. Maybe you're onto something there, dude. Judas says it
That's-
happens all over Africa.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty sad. It's very much, like you are never going to be anything more than what you are, and just be happy that you can even look at a Rolls Royce.
It's almost like you kind of have the security, the peace of mind of it's never going to be mine. I just give up. But I've seen one. That's it. That's good enough. I suppose that's it. I mean, if you were a medieval peasant, that you couldn't hope to be the lord in the castle. It wasn't going to happen. So you just had to accept it. I suppose, oh, my lord, thank you for throwing me your horrible old coins.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, this stuff doesn't just come out of nowhere. This isn't like a black or African thing necessarily. Like, this has been happening
No.
with humans for so long now.
It's definitely all over the place.
Yeah,
I mean, you meet people who, at the same time, are hugely impressed by someone just because they're rich, and I've seen this happen with people I have a lot of respect for. I've seen them meet somebody who's really rich, and they become all servile. They're like, oh, can I get you something to drink? And they're like treating them as if they're superhuman. They've got some godliness or some connection to something spectacular when they just made a couple of good deals. And I'm not denigrating people who do well in business at all. I mean, listen, it takes a lot of skill and persistence, but sometimes there's a bit of luck in the mix as well. And a rich person might not be a good person, just like a poor person might not be a good person. The amount of capital you have access to is no indication of your character. It's a weird thing.
Yeah, it really is.
In South
Just
Africa,
like
you
in
have
the-
to do these things. Sorry, I just want to read this quickly. In South Africa, you have to do these things and show off before the Instagram police, and then the actual police catch up with you. Well, there's no sign that, certainly I haven't seen this guy's name come up in, fraud and corruption or tenders, or I don't know how he does his business, but let's assume he's done well. But I do think in South Africa, you're very stupid if you're flaunting this stuff and you got it illegally. I saw there was a breaking story yesterday that the woman who was the main agent in the Tembisa hospital situation apparently had a house bought for her for like 16 million rand in Midrand somewhere. And they've now caught up with her. If you do bad things, the best that the rest of us can hope for, if you've been a crook, is that at some point you get caught, because then it's all not been worthwhile. If you get away with it, it's been worthwhile. But if you don't, then the rest of us feel some karmic lessons being delivered. There's some justice in the world. And I think everybody likes a little bit of justice, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because they're cheating a system which you have to work hard in. That's not right.
Yeah, correct. Meanwhile, I see that the brilliant campaigning, and we mentioned this a while ago on the show, but like Helen Zille is just doing such an amazing campaign in Johannesburg. Again, I cannot believe that she's 75 years old. She remembers names. She goes to places even my soul wouldn't go with his Rolls Royce. And people are very like cool. They think Helen is the thing. I'm talking about everybody. Again, people in terrible parts of Joburg, which is just crime infested and rubbish. Shithole Joburg, as I call it. And then, in the suburbs, people love her just as much. So I think she's way ahead of the curve on this. And the ANC apparently tried to get the chief executive of ABSA, a guy called Kenny Fihle, to stand as mayor. And again, like when we see courage in the corporate world, we must applaud it. Kenny Fihle said, nah, guys, I'm not interested. So he turned down the ANC publicly and will not be running as their mayoral candidate for Joburg. which is to his credit and to ABSA's credit. So well done, Kenny Fihle.
So when is this whole thing? When do we go to a position where she gets voted in, or?
It's in November. And remember, it's municipal and local elections. So you have to be registered for it. And it's in your ward. In other words, if you're on holiday for this one, you don't get to vote. You have to be present in your ward and you have to go and vote. And it's for your local councillor and it's for the municipality. So if you're in a big city like Tshwane, Joburg, Ekurhuleni, eThekwini, Cape Town, then you go and vote in those municipal elections. And I think there's also an element of it that's to do with how the provinces run. I'm not sure if this is the provincial one, but I think the provincial might happen at the same time as the national does. So this is the second most important election. The national one's in 2029.
Okay, so
that make sense?
registration. So is the registration process done? Like, sorry, I
Well,
mean,
if
I
you
just
were-
found this stuff.
If you were registered in that area, like if you haven't moved and the last time you voted in that area and you were on the voters roll, then you'd probably okay. But they're gonna,
Okay,
the
so
IEC will come out with a list of stuff that they'll start advertising and say you can SMS this number to check that you're registered. So don't panic; it's still a way off.
Okay, so
6
if
months
you
away.
if you were registered for the main elections, you'd be registered for these ones, or is it a different thing?
Yeah, you should be, but this one you have to make sure you're in your area where you are actually resident, where you're registered to vote. That's the difference.
Okay.
So if you just moved from Durban to Johannesburg, then you're probably still registered in Durban, which means you won't be able to vote in Joburg.
Cool.
Okay, cool. This information session is brought to you by Ben and Gareth this morning. Let me get to this one other thing. This is kind of important, and I was very pleased to be at the launch of something called the Free Speech Union on Wednesday afternoon. First of all, Ben, you would have liked the place that it was held. Have you got a picture of that house that I sent you, James? Because I think you've done that tour of Joburg, and
Been
this
to
is
quite
the
a few of
house
the
that
places.
used. Yeah, this is the house that used to belong to the Elbus.
Oh yeah.
In fact, if you drive along the N1 towards the CBD from Sandton, as you
Northwards.
come up, northwards, that's it. As you come up on the hill, the crest of the hill, it's over onto your right. A beautiful house. And this is where they held the launch of the Free Speech Union. You know, our friend Mark Oppenheimer, the advocate with the long hair who does all the free speech cases, there he is in the middle of this picture. Him, along with David Ansara and Martin van Staden, they've started something called the Free Speech Union. Why does this matter to you as an ordinary South African? Well, these guys have said that if you're a member of the Free Speech Union, and I don't know whether you have to join or pay a subscription or whatever, I didn't find out, but I'm sure you can if you ask them. They will defend you in court. David Ansara told me a story about a guy in KZN, some ordinary dude who was joking around on the internet, and he took pictures of like porn off the internet and then superimposed Cyril Ramaphosa's face and I can't remember who else's faces onto these like naked porn stars. And he's currently in jail, and he's in jail for he got a 5-year sentence. They threw the book at this guy for making a joke on the internet. And you've never heard of him. His surname is Nene, and he's in jail in KZN for a joke. So that's the kind of case that I think these guys want to take on. They want to defend people who are accused of hate speech wrongfully. They want to stand up for free speech values. They've got connections all over the world because there are free speech unions in other countries too. And, this is not just a problem in South Africa. Obviously, it's a big problem in Australia, Britain, New Zealand, Canada, countries that you would think of as free speech countries. But we know that the UK has arrested more people for social media posts that they don't agree with than any other country in the world, and by a wide margin. I think the next closest is probably China or Russia, but Britain is way ahead of them in arrests.
Yeah,
You
it's
can't
so
say
depressing,
I know, and you can't say what you want in Britain at the moment. The Prime Minister, even though he's the most unpopular Prime Minister in history, Keir Starmer said, if you say the wrong things, we'll put you in jail. And he's living up to it, man. He is following that to the letter.
That's another thing that's strange, right? When's their election? Because that just sort of, he kind of came in. It's not like they voted for him, right? The commies just, I find that whole thing really, really complex and confusing. their whole electoral system.
I mean, Europe and Britain have got so much to answer for at the moment. Again, we started this morning talking about how elites, people who live in ivory towers and behind high walls and blue light brigades, and they don't know what real people think because they never ask them and they never listen. And that's so true for Britain. It's also true for France, for Belgium. I mean, the Belgians, they just locked up one of the main opposition leaders. The Belgians. I mean, this is the kind of thing you see in tin pot dictatorships in third world countries. Just put the opposition guy in jail. That's what you hear about in Myanmar and Burundi. You don't hear about this in Western countries. Well, I'm afraid that's changed. They've done everything they could in France to prevent Marine Le Pen from justifiable election victories in the French elections. So, it's rules for you and no rules for me. And Keir Starmer he's going to have to go. His own party, by the way, I mean, members of his cabinet have resigned. He can't scrape together 3 people who want him to stay, and yet he's clinging. He's not going anywhere. He's like one of those persistent, if you go for a walk or a hike and you get those fucking things, burrs or what do they call them? Blackjacks or whatever they are that just stick to you. That's what he's like. He is a terrible, terrible person and an ideological moron. And the guy is just weak. I mean, there's not a single person in Britain who goes, that's my leader. Nobody. It must be so embarrassing. Just the sooner he goes, the better for whatever kind of a life comes next for him, whether he's going to become a commentator on Sky News or, go and write a book or just disappear, which is what he should do. Disappear Keir. Let's see what happens. The Reform UK, Nigel Farage's party, just cleaned up in the local elections, cleaned up completely. If Burnham wins his local council seat, he will contest Starmer for PM. Could happen in the next 3 months. Don't have to wait until their next national elections. That's an interesting point. Yeah. So, yeah, if he loses his local council seat, he's gone. Because in Britain, they've still got a constituency-based system. In South Africa, we have what we call a party list system. So here you vote for the party, and then they go, well, on our list of candidates, he's number 512, so he gets in. In Britain, if you live in, Accrington Stanley, then you would have an MP for Accrington Stanley, and that would be the candidate for that party in that area.
Interesting.
What are you doing this weekend?
So Gareth, today I've got a lot of work to catch up on because I played golf yesterday. It is the Champions League final tomorrow, which is obviously a huge deal, which most of my day is being centered around. But it's mostly work, unfortunately, this weekend. And then
not a bad thing.
No, it's some fun stuff. And then I'm going to the Kruger quite soon, like 2 weeks' time with my mom. We're going to do a little winter trip, so that's another 4 days I need to work around.
That's nice.
Yeah, just some good things right now, Gareth. It's even though it's winter, it's a really exciting time, and golf's going well. And like this weekend, Arsenal Champions League final, it's like the end of what the football season is. And then obviously there's the World Cup after that. So it's a bit of a dream final in that it's PSG who are like the sexy attacking team. Arsenal, the more sort of like grindy defensive team. And yeah, Arsenal winning this will just make it the double, because obviously they're champions of England, to be champions of Europe. Yeah, it's a very special time. You know, football fans go through a hell of a lot more emotions than any other sport. So Arsenal fans have earned this moment. Guys like James will be like obviously saying disparaging things, but none of that matters. None of that matters right now. Champions League final, Saturday, 6 p.m. Everything's about that.
James is going on a sexy little holiday. He's going overseas.
Jeepers, James. Ask James about camping, Gareth.
Camping?
James went and he did like a family Kamp Staldraad this week.
Really? James, can you get on here? Tell us about this. This sounds much too interesting for us to breeze past.
Sorry, James, I'm throwing you under the bus
What is
here, but
this?
I want to hear more.
Kampstaldraad.
Hello, guys.
Hello, James. What is your family Kampstaldraad?
We went camping in Pretoria. It was a fun time. Yeah.
Where? I mean, a campsite?
It was at a lodge just outside of Pretoria. And camping is very far from my idea of having a holiday. So it was quite an adjustment. I'm a
Did
city
you have
boy.
like Primus stoves and ablution blocks and all those sexy things?
Yeah, thatch
Oh.
roofs. And I have a thing about thatch roofs as well. So,
Okay, but why did Ben say it's like Kampstaldraad?
I don't know what the translation of that word is. So I'm not sure.
Kamp Staldraad, when the Springboks were basically put back to basics and they all had to like shit in a bush and they had to like cling to each other for warmth in like in a pool. They had to blow up rugby balls in water.
Yeah.
They all just shaved
I
their
think
head.
it's camping, you know?
It just sounds, James, because I had to see James this week for something, and then I asked him where he was, and he sounded so traumatized that his family forced him to go camping. So I've had the funniest images of James boss cucking and trying to like make food on a fire. Although Gareth, you know what it probably was? It probably wasn't even that. James still went to a place. So when he says camping, the fact that there was a LARPer nearby, that's probably what camping means.
Guys, I'm a city boy. I don't do the bush.
Where are you going for your little holiday?
Singapore and Bali.
Nice.
That's fantastic, dude.
Are you going to get a tattoo, James?
I've been advised against getting a tattoo in Bali. Apparently, it's not a good idea to do that.
Yeah, you'll get hepatitis.
I mean, it's pretty bad, so I probably shouldn't then.
There's some good advice from Ben. Yeah, you get hepatitis. All right,
So,
thank you,
James-
James.
But James, okay, so now obviously this is this the proposal tour, or have we missed the wedding and this is the honeymoon? I mean, you know what? People don't get to hear from you nowadays, so we need to.
Well, Ben, people used to do this to you, and now it's like those people who get traumatized when they have
Yes.
initiation at some school. Now they do it to the next crop of people.
My
You used
rites
to
of
get annoyed
passage,
with
well
this.
spotted.
If it is a proposal thing, he's not going to tell us on the show and ruin it, because then she finds out, and then it's not a surprise.
Gareth, he must walk the road that I had to walk. Why must I be the one in the headwind here? Look at James. He's blushing. He's proud right now. The focus is on him. Let's give him his moment.
What I will say is you haven't missed the wedding. That's all I'll say. That's it. That's all I can
See,
say.
Gareth. It's like playing emotional battleships right here. I just sunk
All
his
right.
G7. I got information out of him.
All right. Very good. Thank you, James. All right, Ben, before you fuck off, we've got to bring on Shaman, because I want him to at least say hello to you. And you also, I just want you to have a quick rant, because you say we don't give vegans enough shit today. So in the presence of Mike Shaman, you can have your rant. But for those of you who don't know, Mike he's been on the show a couple of times. He's always a terrific guest, but he's a founder and a chief creative officer at Retroviral, which is his company. And it's made more brands go viral globally than any other agency in Africa. He's developed campaigns that you would remember, like the 60/60 Swindler, My Creepy Teacher, Nando's Last Dictator, and Castle Lager's Grand Box, I think that was the last time we spoke to him actually about his work. Mike is just a very, very cool, very fun guy. And he's recognized with good reason in South Africa for knowing his stuff. So bring on the great Mike Shaman. Hello, Shamanator.
How's it, guys? Geez, Ben, have you transitioned to full cat lady there? Check at you. Cat on your lap.
Shaman, I fucking know you, buddy.
James so much abuse, and you've transitioned to cat lady.
Correct.
Take it, you.
Yeah, give him
I have a
cuck,
cat.
Shaman. Give him. He doesn't get enough cuck in the mornings.
I thought I was backstage looking, and I thought he was wearing a blanket until the blanket's head moved, and I was like, "Oh my god, it's cat lady of Illovo."
Imagine if he also didn't have hair and he was sitting there. What a sad sight that would have
Thank
been.
God he went to Turkey for a golf trip, inverted commas.
Yeah, guys, imagine if I was fat and balding and I had more cats. It would kind of look. But no, this is Luna. Luna will not take any of your shit, Shaman.
You would look like the penguin from fucking Batman.
Yeah, it'd be a look, huh? It'd be a look. But that's the whole thing. I feel pretty comfortable, in my little mini Chesterfield here, talking shit with my mates on a Friday. Life's really good.
Does this thing have video? Can people see you? Oh my goodness, we need to screenshot this.
Yes, people actually have to look at that. I'm sorry. And you can see there are lots of people in the comments who say Ben is basically Leanne with more mobility.
That is horrendous.
Oh, that's so great.
Thank goodness you did all those squats for so many years, Ben.
Ben has more double standards than a prefect who smokes. Ben, why don't you tell us a little bit about your relationship life, says Khalas.
Ooh. Oh, no, we don't want to bring that. Ooh,
Guys,
that's
I
gonna
spoke about my relationship back in the day, a long time ago, like fucking all the time, and you
fucked everything up.
And you pricks roasted everything, and I was all cordial with it because the show's real. It's about me, whatever. I will not tell you anything about my current relationship. I am a closed book. Suck on that. Yeah.
I thought I was here to talk about your relationship. Am I not?
No.
So basically,
the
Ben is the living example of once bitten, twice shy when it comes to talking about this stuff.
No, I'm the living example of like, okay, enough's enough. I've given this. You know what, Gareth? I've given this show so much. Ever since Harambe died, I've given this show a hell of a lot. Even Luna's upset now. She's getting up. She's over it. No, I just think that there's obviously levels to all these kind of things, and the show has been such a cool personal thing for so many of us.
Oh, you shut up. Nobody wants to hit you. Don't worry.
Ben, where are you going? Have you gone for your walk? Are you going for a walk? You look like you're going adventuring.
I'm going for a walk. I need to go buy eggs, and then I've got a whole day of work ahead. So,
do you walk the cat? Because I met someone the other day whose cat.
She walked the cat, Gareth.
No, listen. This chick puts a cat on a leash, and she takes it and the cat fucking walks like a dog.
Good for her. My cat's a cat. She's gonna go wash her bits now, have breakfast, and lie in the sun. She doesn't need to go fucking walking.
All right. Okay, before you go, you said we don't tear into vegans enough on the show, so
I'm not a vegan, so we're fine.
No, I know you're not. So thank God we wouldn't have you on if you were.
Yeah,
no credibility.
Gareth, I don't know how to do the produce by numbers thing with James that you've devised, but I shared something on the group.
Yeah, James, have you got that thing that Ben sent you?
It was just a particular reference to this vegan charlatan who basically.
Okay, here we go.
Giovanna Mendoza. She basically, to cut this very short, the veganism became her Al Gore's climate change stuff, right?
Right.
And she made all this money and created this whole big following on having this vegan raw will change your life. And then she was spotted, this bitch, in fucking Bali, where James is going to get hepatitis. She was spotted with fish on her plate. So it's so unhealthy to be a vegan. And she was like, eventually she had this whole breakdown of like, oh, I'm so sorry, I misled people. But veganism was killing her, basically. It was making her so unhealthy that she was literally like dying inside. So she had all this crap like, vegan booty games, it'll change your life. And then she doesn't actually live that life. She made a 33-minute apology video, which will have to go down as probably the soppiest piece of shit content anyone's ever released on the internet. But these people are all liars. They're all absolute liars. Veganism.
They renamed her. I love this.
The time you became obsessed with the Liver King, and then you were distraught when you ended up juicing after all of that.
I wasn't fucking distraught, Shaman. I thought that was funny.
Shaman, You know this woman, so her name was Yovana, but they renamed her Fishvana. That's my favorite part of the story. You know, it's amazing how many people, they think they can. We started talking about brands earlier, and like you meet some like 21-year-old, and she says to you, my brand is, and I'm like, what? You've got 5 followers on Instagram, and you need a brand. I've got to talk to you about this once Ben has gone too, Shaman. So just get your point of view ready about brands. But look at this chick. Some of them are full of shit. They're trying to get attention. They're trying to monetize everything like Disney's done with Star Wars and totally fucked it up. There are so many people who just cannot be trusted on the internet.
Yeah, but it comes back to this thing about trying to make money out of it. So this chick, she made millions out of like selling this vegan dream. But just like China says you can't talk about stuff if you're not qualified on it, she must pay back the money. There must be a charity where charlatans put all their money back into it. And if it gets someone a Rolls Royce to drive through the Northwest, maybe that's even a better solution.
Sure.
But this woman has deceived, and it's basically fraud. It's just, there's a whole bunch of people whose menstrual cycles are now fucked. They're so malnourished, all because they wanted vegan booty games.
But I think here's a great segue off this stuff, right? I think recently we've been working with some brands, obviously in like the feminine hygiene space, and there was a report released from the UFS, and the report basically named and shamed all of these different local and international brands, how pads were, potentially going to give you some kind of cancer or some kind of impact because of the microplastics in the product. Once again, you've got a university, reputable, credible source. They release this report, but they don't give the brands a right to reply. And then off the back of that, one of the professors involved in the subject is a dude, and he's launching his own pad brand in the next few months. So everybody on the internet loses their collective mind. And then all these like wannabe journo bros coming out reporting on, oh my goodness, you open a pad and you're basically going to get cancer. It created such a storm. But then once again, the brands are so limited to so much of what they can and can't say that they can't come out and defend themselves. So everybody just jumps on this like hot topic of dragging all these brands. And the ironic thing is it ends up dominantly being dudes calling out the feminine hygiene brands for what the damages that they're causing on women. And it's like, it's this typical,
this is why we brought you. This is why we brought you on, because if anyone knows about tampons and pads, it's you. I mean, it's just this.
Absolutely. I'm basically the Daniel Day-Lewis of the product method. We're full method.
No, that is. I mean, that's fascinating. But again, it just shows you there are so many fucking crooks out there, and people love making a mountain out of a molehill. And of course, the irony for most of these brands, I'm sure you'll agree with me here, Shaman, is that they get into a complete panic. They get their tits are in a spin, and then 2 days later, nobody's worried about it anymore. They've moved on. They've continued whatever products they were using, and nothing's changed.
I think that's the majority thing around outrage, right? It's like so few people actually end up going and participating in an action for their activism. I mean, we saw this a couple of days ago with, the South African influencer in the fitness space. She got absolutely dragged. The comments, the destruction, you're a terrible person. You're not lean, you're mean, whatever other kind of abuse.
What did she say? What did she say?
There was a topic around personal trainers, and she's quite lighthearted, and she ends up making a few jokes about things. But her whole thing was like, the gist of it was really, how can you trust a personal trainer who's not in shape? Like, you want to work with the expert that kind of is the representation of the thing that you want to achieve. Geez, and she got absolutely taken to the cleaners for fat shaming and body shaming and mental shaming. And it becomes like almost like this perfect mob mentality where people go and they fixate and they zero in on you. They drag you to death. And then she put out the apology. And I'm like, I think that actually makes it worse. Because once you put out the apology, then you bring the second audience back into it. Then you double down on people going back into the original story. And I think ultimately she must have had a direct impact. Like, people must have been canceling some of their subscriptions to her service for her to have done that. Because I think unless people are acting and actually like leading to a destruction in your revenue, then I just think she should have put her head down and let it blow over.
Yeah, again, first of all, before we even get to the question around whether that's a good strategy or not, I just think she's right. Like, I don't want to trust a fat personal trainer, and I wouldn't trust a thin chef. You know,
that's all.
I don't mind. Obviously, you can be optimal in both, in any profession, if you're in good shape. So, in other words, if you are in good shape,
David Higgs, what a handsome chef, eh? David Higgs,
exactly.
Yo, let's give him a shout out.
Anything, but if you were a chef and you were slightly bigger, I would go, that's fine. It's not a problem. But if you're a personal trainer or a nutritionist and you are enormous, obviously that's a huge credibility problem.
Yeah, it is a huge credibility problem, but only if that personal trainer only wants to do a smoothie with you. If that personal trainer really knows their shit. And sometimes a fat person shouting at you, there's like extra irony. It's like, well, I can't like go against it because I need to prove that to them. Maybe it's more motivating. Look,
Maybe
it's one of those things like
fear of God into you. If you don't do those burpees, you look like me.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, hi, I'm your before picture, but I'm telling you after picture things. That's also kind of like a good mental thing. The proof's always in the pudding, especially with chefs.
Real life metaphors. I think maybe we need more real life, tangible metaphors.
Yeah.
Guys,
there was that.
You'll like this. Carl dos Santos, the Pora, in the comments says,
I really don't like it because I hate Carl.
She's 100% right. She was abused online, and it's fucking ridiculous. And she's very attractive. She must be left alone. Oh.
Okay. Well, Carl, you're right. You're right. Attractive people, as we all know, are better people, so they should be given different behavioral things. Well said, Carl. Sorry, Mike. Just for reference, Carl's 4'7" and hairy.
Well, everybody knows. That's standard and he says, by the way, also it's like taking financial advice from a homeless person. Listen, there are so many nobodies who suddenly think they need to be putting out like advice videos. This has become a whole cottage industry on the internet too. You've got people who they sold their mom's car and now suddenly they're a car dealer, and they're like, well, if you want to sell cars, let me tell you how. People who've done absolutely nothing, trying to become like the sage, the wise advisor online. Just calm down there. You haven't done anything in your life yet.
Yeah. Speaking of doing things, I got to go buy eggs, and I
right.
don't want to distract you with your conversation with Shaman because I'll
go
obviously
walk
always
your
distract
cat.
him.
All right,
Fuck you guys! Like,
you can walk your cat, Ben.
my cat is literally washing up. I told you. Look, there, washing her bits. Just gonna go lie in the sun. Luna, that is quite something. Shit.
She's taking on yoga poses.
I'm glad we can't see that.
Yeah.
All
All right, very good. Thank you, Ben. Ciao. Let me now let the adults talk.
Bye.
How are you, Shaman?
Yeah, I'm good, man. That was
Good.
That was a great intro. It was vibes, and
No,
things are good, man. We're working hard,
Yeah, I
having
tried
fun,
to-
playing as always.
Good. No. Listen, it always makes me smile when I get the odd message from you on WhatsApp, or I hear that you've been doing something crazy, because you always are busy. So it's nice to hear. Listen, Ben is such an old man. Hey, fuck.
No, he's an old man. Oh,
He's been an old man though since I met him when he was like 21 or whatever. He's always been an old man. And you must hear the other night we both went to this charity thing because he was invited and I was invited at the same time. So we met up in the driveway and I said to him, yeah, this is a cool cause. And he said, yeah, it's a good idea. But fuck. And then he starts moaning about how cold it is and just like such an old man.
but I mean, it's great that he's in love because I think he's a lot less cynical nowadays. I had a great drive with him to Sun City the other day. We worked on a project together, and there's reduced cynicism. So I'm impressed. He's finding his youthfulness again.
Hey, I meant to send you a present. I bought you a present the other day. I'll show you a picture of it, and then I'll send it to your office. But I want to have more of these made, and I know you've got connections all over the place. So when you receive it, please tell me if we can have more made. James, show him it's number 1.
Ben's texting me now, giving me abuse. Love you, Ben.
Yeah. Just take a look at this. This is your present, Shaman, and I want you to make some more for me because I want to give everybody one for Christmas.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
Isn't that the greatest present in the world? Fuck, I want to give everybody I know one of those. I swear. But I want it to look exactly like that. And I'm sure there's somebody, if we give them like a picture, they can copy it. Oh, you're back. I thought you had to go and walk the cat.
Are you wearing an Arsenal scarf still? Jeez, you're insufferable. You are the
Ben's
Arsenal
back, everybody.
archetype. Singing
What do you
about
want?
North London.
What does he want? He came back and then he's disappeared again.
Going back
Jesus.
to defend his honor like an old man.
So, so I'll bring you your present next week. All right.
Oh, it's exceptional. Like, I'm gonna mount it on my wall. Oh.
It's a Princess Diana memorial plate, but the Princess
Who's the
Diana on there
artist?
looks like
The artist,
looks
I need
like
to find that person.
it looks like Rocky after the fight. You know, it's not a good picture.
Oh my goodness.
So
Wow.
bad. I'm pretty sure that comes from like Bulgaria or Moldova or somewhere like that.
Like one of those taxidermy accounts in the early days of Twitter. There was that
Exactly.
ridiculous taxidermy, and you just see like the unhappiest little ferrets.
Oh my God. So listen, I mean, dude, you've got, aside from the business stuff, which we could talk about in a second, I mean, you've got kids, you've got this really busy life outside of the office. How's all of that going? How would you rate things at the moment out of 10?
I just think it feels like it's constantly on the inside of a washing machine when it's like the spin cycle. But I think that, I had to drive down to where's that place? Bergville, like on the way to KZN. You go via Bergville where the famous Wimpy is, right?
Right.
And we were going and we were interviewing these grandmothers of Springboks. You mentioned the grandboks in the intro.
Yeah.
And I was
Which
driving
was so great, by the way. I mean, that one old lady was such a character.
Malcolm Marx's granny. She was hilarious.
Oh, she's
But
great.
I went with one of my writers, Spoo. He now works at Supersport, and he and I went for a drive down to go to find and interview Bongi Mbonambi's Gogo. And for me, it was such an entertaining day. And we got there, and it was one of these small holdings, and she had this really yappy little dog. And it was yap, 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 yap. I went outside to do my country duty, and I picked up the dog. And because I'm a father to several offspring, I was cradling this little dog like a baby. Shh, 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 shh. Eventually got the dog to keep quiet, and we were getting the interview, and there was no noise. It was perfect. But then I thought, I became complacent, and then I put the dog down. Bad mistake. The dog then went for a run, and it went running through the hood. And then I was running through the hood, trying to catch the dog. And then there was a man shouting at me, Umlungu Inja, Umlungu Inja. And then I had my colleague, and my colleague was like explaining to him, it's not the White Oaks dog. The dog lives here. And he's like, no.
Yeah.
That's not that dog isn't from the hood. That dog is from the suburbs. And it was just such an entertaining day of me chasing the 6'3" White Oak, running through the hood, chasing this little dog. And when we were driving back that day, Spoo says to me, he says, yes, it must be so lekker running a business. And this was end of 2023. So this was 13 years into Retroviral. And I said to him, I've really enjoyed the last couple years. And he said, the last couple, like the last 5. I said, no, couple as in 2. Like the last 2 have been really good. So he says, out of 13 years, you've really enjoyed the last 2. And I said, yeah. And he said, really? You've been plugging away and blood, sweat, and tearing your way for 10, 11 years. And I said, dude, that's it. That's the entrepreneurial hustle. It generally sucks. And there's like moments of absolute, utter sheer joy peppered in between. But I think since then, between 23 and 26, like I'm in such a great space. I'm like, don't fuck this up. Like this is what entrepreneurship should be about. Yes, it's so difficult still, and there's hard days, and there's tough conversations, and there's awkward moments. But I get to wake up every morning, and I get to think, Like, what are we creating today? And, we always joke, we're like, not saving lives, we're just saving PDFs. We're not Doctors Without Borders. But it's like, we literally get to make shit that entertains people on a daily basis. And the last week has been insane. Like, we've been doing a lot of content with Springboks. And, when you're given that gap to shoot the guys, you only are ever really given like 2 or 3 weeks notice max. I shot a project now with Sia where it's coming out at the end of the year, but I was given a 12-day heads up that he was available. And we had to move mountains. And for those who don't know the world of like production, a little set that goes into creating a 30-second ad, there's between 80 and 100 people that are touching that project, that are involved in it. Yeah. Brings together this little microcosm of the weird and wonderful, eclectic mix of creative and analytical types. And you all have a role, and it's almost like an ant colony where everyone knows their role, they do their job, they mic the things, they get the shot, and then this whole little mini universe just dissipates and moves on to the next thing. And I think that's this beautiful thing that we get to be involved in on a daily basis. And for me, that's the ultimate privilege, being able to go and see different parts of the country, the world, and bring things to life. Like, I think I found my dream, and I'm like, every day, just appreciate this through the tough and the good. Don't fuck it up.
I love that, man. I'm so happy to hear that, because I met you when you were just starting off in this business, and you were already making waves then. And it's been listen, I read a thing yesterday on the most cuck of all the social media, LinkedIn. But I read a thing by I'm sure he's also a friend of yours. The guy from Heavy Chef, man.
Oh yes, Fred Road.
Fred Road. Okay, so Fred posted this thing about how he was talking. He sat down for a coffee with a guy who founded his own company.
Yes.
Yeah, he sat down with this founder and he asked him how he was, and the guy said, "Tired." Yeah. And there are all these guys who go on podcasts and they write articles and they post like blogs or whatever about their entrepreneurial journey, and a lot of them are honest about it, but there are a great collection of them too who just talk shit. They tell you how everything works, everything's great, everybody's easy to. I love my staff. I never have problems with any clients. It's just wonderful, and that's just not the truth. I mean, there are the reason it's work, the reason that you need to put in way more effort to get something out, is because it's hard. It's not fucking easy. So I'm glad that it's working, and you guys really do some awesome stuff. So I'm thrilled about that.
Thanks,
by the way, someone's giving you shit here. Slippery Pickle. I think it's him.
Slippery Pickle. That's out of it.
Slippery Pickle says, "I think you suck as an entrepreneur, Shaman. Cyril Ramaphosa started padding his sofa with cash from day one."
That's interesting. Well, what's the point?
Yeah. Well, pad your sofa with cash. That is such an accurate description of being an entrepreneur. I'm 14 years in now, says Carl, and I've enjoyed 18 months. And they have not been consecutive months.
Jeez. I feel you, man. Yeah, I think that's the thing, right? Like, and this is the thing that will continue to test you, is like, is the juice worth the squeeze? And when do you throw it in? And like, I've had some side projects, and, even Ben and I have been involved in like a sports tech product. And you have product market fit, you find the thing, you're changing some lives, but then you also have to be almost honest with yourself, and you have to make the call. I mean, in that match kit business that we started helping Olympic athletes generate cash for their Cinderella sports endeavors. And I think in like 18 months, we helped those athletes that don't have traditional funding, we helped them raise like 3.5-4 million rand. But ultimately, the economics didn't make sense. So even in that sense, like, Ben and I were honest enough, and we also we were just, professional enough with one another to be like, cool, we have to call it. And I think, fortunately, we were also once again able to just keep the personal relationship separate from the business stuff. But these things happen. Like, you get to a stage where you try things, you experiment, and if they're not working, if the unit economics don't make sense, you actually have to be honest and call it at times.
Yeah, dude. I mean, listen, I've had personal experience of this in the last couple of months. Some businesses survive and some don't. And you also can't take it super personally. It's really hard to let other people down and tell them the truth that it's not working. But What are you going to do? You can't keep pretending. And a lot of people in business do pretend. You know, there are lots of people in corporate South Africa, for example, who, you know, they're putting on a brave face, but they hate their jobs. I spoke to somebody who, she's not a dishonest person. She's a really high-powered, brilliant, dynamic, smart, fastidious, fucking does the hard heavy lifting stuff. And she said to me the other day, I'm over my job. I hate this job. I hate the people I work with. And it's not me. She said, I've done all the soul searching you could do. Looked in the mirror every morning and gone, what am I doing wrong before I criticize anybody else? And she said, I feel like that environment is making me worse, not better.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
And I think, like, you know, the biggest part to overcome is the ego, right? What will my friends say? What will my family say? So a lot of people just hang on to stuff because they want the perception of good. And you speak exactly to that point. Like you've had some business partners recently as well, where it's like the story on the outside was incongruous with the reality. And if someone had just shouted out loud and said, listen, this is not as easy as I'm making it, then there's the potential avoidance of the Icarus moment. But like, that's the reality, right? Is like too many people allow the ego to take them to the sun. The wax melts, the feathers fall off, and then there's the biggest crash and biggest destruction.
100% right. Yeah. And also, you know, as a result of this and some other bad character judgment in the past, I have now completely, if you'd asked me a year or 2 years ago, you'd said, are you a good judge of character? I would have said, yeah, fuck, of course. I've met a lot of people. I can very quickly guess whether someone's an honest or good person or whether they're not. Now, if you ask me that, I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
No idea.
And that's the scary thing, right? Is like some people are, I don't know. I mean, I think narcissism gets thrown around pretty easily nowadays as the de facto issue. But I think it's more than that. I think it's almost like borderline psychosis. And I think there are people that are just, it's like people spoke about Steve Jobs having that reality distortion field where he would just believe stuff. And I think that there's so much, I think entrepreneurship is a mental health issue. And I think there's a spectrum of like how much of a psychotic you need to be to make this thing succeed.
Yeah, it's, you know, genius and lunatic live on the same street, right? So that's always true. The people who, I mean, everybody who has ever had any interaction with Steve Jobs, for example, said he was an absolute nightmare and he was horrific to work for and work with. But then if he was easy and more kind of, that'll be all right. We don't worry so much about the angle of the bevel on the edge of the new iPhone. It's not so important. Leave that alone. We wouldn't have got the quality of stuff out of him that we ended up getting. So it takes a little bit of crazy to make shit happen. So somebody in the comments here, Common Sense, asks, is AI killing the creative industry? And as a preamble to this, because everybody brings up AI these days because they want to sound like they know what's going on. The truth is I've been looking into this. I've been practically putting it to use in my own daily life, but I've been paying attention to what people like Sam Altman are saying. He was quoted this week, amazingly, saying that he can't believe he's been using AI to answer all his emails and his messages. And he said, I can't believe it, but people actually prefer it if I answer. Like, it's a big surprise to him. He didn't know this. Yeah, and there are massive advantages to AI. Don't get me wrong. I'm an optimist on that front. I think we're going to end up forging ahead faster as a species because of this. But in the advertising and creative business, which is your business, where are you applying it and where are you like drawing a line and saying, no, actually, this is still a people area?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think I've got a little bit of the benefit of hindsight, and I've seen quite a few radical shifts since the mid-start of the 2000s. And I think like when social media started, there was panic, job losses. It's going to be the death of industry. So there's like these moments that we've gone through. We've gone through technological swings. We've gone through recessions. We've gone through these moments. So there's always panic and there's always fear around new tech. And I think for me, the biggest benefit, and I think I'm generally a glass half full kind of dude. Like when I look at it, the ability for us to sell work has never been more rich than it is now. So what I mean by that is like I use AI predominantly for a show and sell capability, because it's like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, but its clients are from Mars, agencies are from Venus. And we don't speak the same language as a supplier and as our client. So now for the first time in history, I'm able to take my client or my potential client on a journey, come into my fucked up mind and see where I'm going to take this brand and where we're going to go and how we're going to play. Now we have, it was always very difficult for me to articulate exactly what I could see because it was so different. And I'm very visual and I'm very word driven. So I would have to rely on my words and my articulation to try and sell stuff with like really good design or storyboards. And the amount of resources and time and energy of designers to pull big storyboards and bring universes. And in our world, sometimes you develop what's called an animatic. So for those listeners, it's like an animatic is almost like a fake version of your ad using stock videos. So you like almost piece it together or is stealing it from existing ads to show them what a scene could look like. But the amount of resource and intensity, and I think this job that we've pulled off now in 13 days, if it wasn't for the AI animatic that we could put together in an afternoon to show and sell what the structure is going to look like, I don't think we would have been able to sign that thing off. It would have just been one of those projects that crashes and burns. So for me, the biggest benefit is I've been able to sell more stuff quicker, get to the green light or the red light quicker to say yes or no quicker. And it's reduced our hours and our dependence on having to do pre-work before you've even got the contract. Because for us, it's not like lawyers. We do all these hours that we can't bill for. And if we pitch on stuff, there's no pitch fees. So that's generally why I don't get involved in pitch work, because you're bringing your entire studio on the journey in the hope that you could have maybe a 25% chance of winning. And I think that the unit economics in advertising and agency world is so backward. But I think because we've always been small and we've always been nimble, we've always found these little hacks to get to a place to show and sell quicker. And that's where so many of these international, behemoths are falling by the wayside. The WPPs of the world, the Omnicoms, all of them. There's mergers and acquisitions. There's destructions. There's the death of brands that have been iconic in our industry. And that is a direct result of AI and efficiencies. But ultimately, I think we've helped ourselves future-proof so much of the evolution by remaining nimble and remaining fast-moving and not remaining too key client dependent. Because you see it with the big agencies, they lose one bank, one telco. It affects hundreds or thousands of jobs. And then some of those people move to the new agency, or some of them are made permanently redundant. So I think that AI has a lot of change coming with it. And I also I think that there's a lot of bad actors in that space that are being given the keys to humanity. So I think that there is the extremes of the potential that this thing brings, the job creation, the opportunities across Africa, the work that the guys are doing with Fiber Time in particular, that Alan Craig Jr. is taking connectivity to townships for R5 a day. That's going to get more people. I mean, I think the average person on Fiber Time is using a gig a day. They wouldn't be able to use that with a traditional telco. They wouldn't be able to do that in their traditional setup. So I think the technology and the opportunities are vast. But now it's do we have a much more of a reliance on 3 or 4 key players to now dictate how the whole world accesses and implements AI, which is
and also we've got to be really wary of these tech billionaires telling us something and we just take it as gospel. I mean, for example, one of the things Altman said this week is that within the next few months, every human, no matter how intelligent, will be outperformed in intelligence by a machine. And while that may be true from the point of view of having data, having the access to data, being able to pull a fact that is already in existence, what AI is doing is it's floating on top of all of human creation up to now. It's not creating new things itself, right? So it's actually plagiarizing. It's the greatest plagiarist, not the greatest thinker. And it irritates me when I take Claude or ChatGPT or Grok and it says thinking ... while it's giving me an answer. I'm like, no, you're not thinking. You're going through, you're processing all of this data, which is amazing. Don't get me wrong. All of this data, it's been written by and created by human beings who came before you. Sometimes you'll give them credit, sometimes you won't. And it doesn't mean that you are creating something new. I mean, you know what the rules are around like actually using someone else's material. They're pretty tough. And the lawyers who will be replaced, yay, by AI at some point, are on the case of like, how do you prove, first of all, that someone has a copyright or that it's been plagiarized? Because if you change it enough, like let's say, for example, let's say that plate, the Diana, that beautiful plate that I've given you as a present.
Artwork, that photorealistic art.
Yeah. Now, if we copy that exactly, which is my intention, then we're plagiarizing, right? But if we change it and like we put a pair of glasses on her or something, then you sufficiently change it that it's a new format, it's a new creation, and then you are not breaking copyright.
Well, this is exactly your point, right? What I love about that comment is that let's look at Amapiano as a genre because it's becoming one of our best exports at the moment. Like humans created Amapiano as like almost an evolution of other elements, right? You can brief AI to create a #1 world record breaking hit Amapiano track because it has all the base knowledge of what Amapiano is, what the beats are, all that kind of stuff. So it can create an Amapiano track for you. It'll probably be incredible. But without people, it wouldn't be able to create and reinvent a new genre that doesn't exist without that human intervention or without that human like tinkering.
It's not going to go out of its field of vision that has been set by humans and think like a human could outside of the box.
Yeah. And I love this week because I don't know if you saw that discussion with the CEO of Anthropic and the Pope, an atheist and the Pope. It's like one of those jokes. An atheist and the Pope walk into a bar. That's exactly what it was. And they actually agreed.
Amazingly, I mean, the Pope issued this encyclical as a part of this week. Clearly, the Vatican is very worried about AI this week because they had the meeting with Dario from Anthropic and then the Pope. But he issued his encyclical and he said, we must guard against the dangers of AI and that there are spiritual realms which AI won't ever have access to because it doesn't have a soul and all of this stuff, which you expected the Pope to say. I mean, that's his whole job. That's his thing.
That's his shtick.
And I was, if you're looking for wisdom in the spiritual realm, you'd better turn to theologists and to philosophers. But I don't think that people who are, for example, developing a relationship with their AI because they can't have a real human relationship, I don't think that's healthy. And while it may tell you things that make you feel better, because that's its whole job. Yeah. So many of the criticisms about AI is like, it's there to make you feel better. It's there to give you the answer you want to hear. And that's not
it's AV, it's artificial validation. That's what it is.
Right. That's not good for people. I mean, you've got these people who go on there and then they literally take the entire WhatsApp conversation they're having with their life partner, with their girlfriend or boyfriend, and they upload it as a document and they say to AI, ChatGPT or whatever, they go, what should my response be to this person? Give me a couple of liners I can use to get their attention or to piss them off or to do whatever. It's so dangerous. That is just a highway to hell.
Yeah, but that's why you've also seen those cases of self-harm and suicide. It's like, the thing is validating that it's okay for you to have dangerous thoughts, and it's like taking you on this journey. It's not stopping to say, "Hey, hang on, like this is not Ayoba. I think we need to get the professionals in here."
Yeah. I mean, Koketso says in the comments, "Leave your devices. Let's go to the beach and swim.
Woo-hoo!
Get out there, touch grass."
Let's go, Koketso. Let's get the Coronas and let's go pop some bottles.
Vyasan says, "I'm interested in what is under the Vatican." Oh, okay. Sure. That's a discussion for another day, though, dude.
That's another 4-hour discussion. That's one.
I tried the agent this week. When you use your AI, whatever platform you're on, and you try the agent, I find it very buggy, man. It's just stops working. Like you get it working, and then it like delivers once, and you say, okay, I need you to do this thing, and then it just after like 2 minutes of thinking, ... it says stuck.
Yeah. Well, also like talking about buggy, I mean, so much about our world nowadays, like when we come to making commercials or branded content, there's so many experts and modules that we have to now plug our ads into for pre-testing to see what the AI thinks. And I think like, for me, it always makes me laugh about how unique we are as a nation, because, we have such an interesting nuance in our comedy. Like there's nothing that you can really pinpoint it. I mean, obviously there's influence from like colonial times and like the British influence. There's the slapstick influence from like US TV, but our comedy is so unique. And even if you look across our languages and cultures, there's so many interesting moments where it cannot be defined. So I think like when our stuff gets tested on AI, it comes back with unfavorable results because the AI can't understand what's funny about it. And this is what I keep saying to our clients is like, I'll take levels of testing, but also please understand the nuance of how we deliver things in this country is so unique that AI will never understand why we are so funny. And we have some of the most beautiful moments. I mean, that perfect example, which was from Heritage Day last year, was the Vaseline print ad with the little kid, and he's getting squished by Gogo, getting rubbed, all the lotions being rubbed on.
AI would never understand that.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. Yeah. It's like, oh, your kid doesn't look perfect because his face is all mushy. But in actual fact, like people around the world have resonated with that because of Gogo's grannies and others who have smushed their faces to death with some form of lotion.
Tell me, you've said nice things about the creative industry, and of course there are a lot of good things, and we can be very proud in South Africa that there are good ideas coming out all the time. But what's been cuck? Have you seen anything lately? Because I often think, oh, that is a cuck campaign. But there isn't really a central repository for people to say that's cuck. Have you seen anything lately in advertising and marketing that you thought, yeah, that's a bad idea?
Yeah, I'll start with a positive thing, obviously. But I think, we've been forced to almost punch above our weight a bit because there was a period in time where we punched and we were like a top kind of country in Cannes. We were a top kind of country in the One Show. And we kind of fell off the last few years. And I think it's been kind of like an industry decline in general. And we've been under a lot of pressure, especially when you look at budgets and you look at situations. I've got mates that work in New York, for example. I mean, they're making $25-30 million Super Bowl level campaigns. I mean, that's unheard of. So like, when you see Arnold Schwarzenegger in a BMW Super Bowl ad, like Arnold's getting $5 million for that Super Bowl ad, And I think that for me, we, sometimes, and you've spoken about this throughout your career about victimhood. And I think sometimes we've stood there and we've used the victim card. We don't have enough budgets. We don't have enough brave clients. We don't have there's always the excuses, right? But I think what's really been happening, what's been really exciting from the last couple of years is that people have realized that we have to save ourselves. We have to save this industry. And sometimes it can be the street casting of real people to get a smushy face that does the thing. It does the trick. And I think our industry here went through that period where, you had the archetypal ad Mad Men kind of situation where guys were making, insane money, buying Camps Bay apartments. And that whole world has shifted to a space now where you actually have to think about harder working ideas that cut through. And I think that for so long, advertising had always thought about, oh, you make a TV commercial, everybody talks about it. Nowadays, there's so much noise, and with all these new channels and TikTok, etc., and you really have to have an insanely powerful idea that's built on a very strong premise and an insight. And I always talk about stand-up comedy and marketing being cousins. The funniest comedy that you and I like, depending on whatever comedians may be your or my favorites, the funny thing comes from the truth. And when you observe that truthful moment, whether you're a Kevin Hart or a Trevor Noah or a Chris Rock kind of guy, when they say the thing that's true, then they take us on the act out journey. That is still the funniest comedy. Those are still the best ad creatives that you will find. Those are the things that really cut through culture and make us all smile so deeply inside.
And also, it helps that some clients are really awesome. There are people... I often will say that so many of the marketing people in companies are terrified of doing the wrong thing, so they never take a risk and do the right thing. But
Yeah.
there are a lot of people in South Africa who are like seasoned, smart marketers. You know, you don't have to go to them with some complicated 80-page PowerPoint presentation. When they see the spark of a good idea, they're like, yeah, take our money. I know you're going to do a good job of this. And those people are such a pleasure. Unfortunately, they're few and far between. And you know which brands they work for because they're the brands that are kicking ass, right?
Yeah.
And
I think
any
that's the thing,
brand
right?
that
It's
you
like
aren't
simplifying. Sorry, carry on.
No, any brand that isn't kicking ass and has just gone quiet or has become bland or has become boring, you just know that they've got someone in marketing there who's just terrified of making the wrong decision. They're just protecting what is rather than taking it somewhere really interesting and clever and creative.
Yeah, and we're finding the best clients of ours are those where they've codified a way to incentivize their teams for good creative work internally. And then they've developed a language or some kind of framework between their brand teams and their agencies where we can all understand what a good idea looks like, what a vanilla idea looks like, and what is something that you should continue to pursue and something that you should actually stop and you should move on from. So I think that's the thing, is like it's all dependent on building these like common languages between the us and them and bringing those two things together so that there's less of a polarizing world between the two of them.
So is it in advertising? Is it all about the awards? Because the awards obviously matter. You mentioned them just now as a barometer of whether South Africa's, you know, internationally shooting the lights out or not. But what do you think the importance of awards are?
So the really difficult thing about awards is like you have to generally enter with these case study videos. So you're not entering with the actual work. You're entering like the story about the work. And I think like I read this interesting article on Ad Age yesterday. There's this like really shit hot shop that just their focus is making like award ad entries, and they charge like $30,000 to $50,000 to make one of these videos. And I mean, a lot of our work, we're not even getting that for an entire campaign, you know? So once again, like it just shows you the level of investment to tell the story behind the story, right? And I think what was really beautiful last year was that we have this new agency that's a little bit of an upstart in South Africa called Bananas. And they were doing a lot of work out of Thailand. And if your listeners go and search and Google KFC cake from Thailand, it's like this 2-minute story around KFC's birthday in Thailand where pretty much everything turns to cake. And it's beautiful, from the remote control to the person's head. Everything, the whole world starts turning into cake. And it's like a typical like dystopian yet funny Thai execution where everything just starts going bonkers. And the most amazing thing about that was like their first major project since starting this thing. Obviously there's experience and there's other agencies they've worked with and they've started and they've had backgrounds in a lot of work. So they're not like people that are fresh out of university. They're like seasoned advertisers. But they were the one agency from South Africa that went onto the stage at Cannes. And you only go into the stage if you get a gold or a Grand Prix. So it's a big deal. I mean, out of tens of thousands of entries, getting onto the stage is a massive deal. And they got on stage, they wore their South African flags, and it was this beautiful moment. Like so many competitor agencies were there watching, clapping for them. And I think there's something beautiful about competition, but that's also healthy where you clap for your peers, like genuinely when they go up on stage to represent the country. And I think we're really seeing an exciting moment in SA advertising where so many of these little independents are popping up. Some of them might just be starting. Others like Retroviral, it's our 16th birthday next week. So it's like, it takes 16 years to become an overnight sensation. The normal one, like the 10 years to become an overnight sensation, you know? And I think that's the hardship about this stuff. You got to keep chipping away, or you got to sell and move on. And that's the decision.
You haven't given me an example of someone who's cuck.
Cliff, you're not going to rage bait me today, Bob.
No, just I see stuff all the time and I'm like, oh, that's cuck.
You know what? 90% of work is terrible. And I think that so much of that is the fact that, you know, you also like you don't have a lot of creative people leading the charge in some of those brands. Or like you said, sometimes there's like a roadblock, whether it's all the way from the C-suite or the CFO, like curtailing what good creative is. Or sometimes it's a a jury of too many people, like a collection of people that then waters it down. So I think like offhand, I was actually really thinking about bad stuff, and I'm like, there's just a lot of rubbish, but there's so many other nuances and things around that to why it became rubbish.
All right.
So
You don't have to make excuses. You just won't. You won't answer it. It's fine. I'm not Deborah Patter. I'm not going to force you down and make you spit out.
Leave me alone, Deborah Patter.
You remember her? Okay, so what have you learned about people? Because it seems to me that, like Steve Jobs, again, we come back to him. He said once, don't do market research, don't question, don't ask people what they want. And I think Henry Ford said this, at the turn of the last century. He said, if I'd asked people, what they wanted, they would have told me faster horses. And then he invented the car. So do people know what they want, or do you have to show them what they want?
I think you have to be able to really understand culture, and you have to understand like how people tick. I think you have to spend time, you have to observe, you have to be, I think, obsessively curious, because you have to understand how people engage and what makes human behavior. And I think once you've got that base, then you go and you evolve and you build on top of that. But you have to get people to nod their head because they buy into the premise, the truth, or the insight. And I think that's the key, is like land the truth, then build on top of that and show people what you're offering. Like I love those Super Bowl ads from Anthropic where they made fun of like, they personalized AI talking to the person. So there was like a personal trainer and a dude trying to get ripped. And he was like skinny and like doing pull-ups. And then the face and the expressions, it made you think exactly how AI looks and talks to you. It almost is artificial. It does speak to you in a weird way. And I think that's ultimately, where we're moving, is like there's this constant dichotomy between the artificial and the human. And we're going to see more and more brands that continue to unpack what it means to be human, and also to double down on their distinctiveness of what makes their brand uniquely human, because not everyone can be human in a very like archetypal, generic way. You have to find your thing. And for brands that have their thing, it's now more than ever to double down on that uniqueness. The taste that stood the test of time, take a break, have a Kit Kat, like all these kinds of things. Like you don't need to change, just find your positioning, find the thing that's working, and continue to absolutely be consistent and double down on that. Because the more you change, the more confused your customer's going to be.
And you mentioned at the beginning of this answer that you've given us, which is a very good one. You said you have to understand the culture, and you have to be imbued in it. You have to be like neck deep in all of this stuff. And isn't it maybe a sign of success when your tagline or your campaign becomes part of the culture? It's like people adopt that, and it becomes shorthand for not just that product or service, but for a whole way of thinking. The minute people say, nobody goes, I'm going to look that up on the internet, I'll Google it. And that's the most obvious example. And when you say, have a break, have a Kit Kat, then, that's shorthand for people. They understand what that means. And it lasts forever. I mean, that ad was probably when we were kids, but it's still there in people's heads.
I don't work with 60/60 anymore, but when I did, like what I loved about that culture, like,
oh, well, fuck them then, don't talk about them.
No, but I think this is an important point, because in our business, we've got a WhatsApp group where like it's brutal honesty. Hey guys, this is an idea I have. This is what I'm thinking. Am I being the old white guy on the chat, or is this something that is like universal among South Africans? And my team has the freedom to say, "No, you're being the weird old white guy. This is not funny to the majority of South Africa." So I think when you create a safe space that people can feed back like that, with 60/60, when we worked on that Tinder swindler idea, like we basically had a chat with them, and they took an idea from one of their interns at the time. Like she's now obviously climbed through the ranks and she's moved up. Nasipi Wasi, I always give her a shout out, because 60/60 had built an environment of so much R&D, yet they still took the advice of an intern who said, hey, let's create these don't get swindled missions on our app. Then I screenshotted those missions and I put them on my LinkedIn, and I got like 100,000 impressions in an afternoon. So I went back to them and said, guys, this is absolutely resonating. Being spoken about on radio. People are talking about Tinder swindler through so many communities and languages. Like so many South Africans have been catfished. So let's create a little video around that. And it was quite funny because, the comedian Glenn Beadham and Pam, he looked like the Tinder swindler if you, kind of made him up a little bit. So we did this whole
he's so funny. I mean, that guy can do anything.
So we put him in this backdrop, and then he almost recorded like he was in a safe house saying, 60, you have stolen my intellectual property. Now I want free groceries for the rest of my life. And he ended up going on delivering, and we got him to record some of the lines that the Simon Levive dude did in the actual docu. And that was such a simple setup. It was a simple idea. It was old school conference call sign of yo guys, we want to do this, let's go. And he shot that in an afternoon, then went online. It got 8 million views over the weekend, and it drove some of the most aggressive traffic to the site to drive downloads of the app itself. So for me, I'm a huge proponent of creative ideas in advertising, because we serving a commercial function, not just an artistic function. It's got to do something. It's got to move you, but then it's got to drive action, and it's got to get you to download an app, use a service, use a product. And that, for me, I think there's not enough thought process between that whole value chain that too few advertisers truly understand.
Listen, dude, you're kicking ass and taking numbers. I love it. And it's great to hear that you're also enjoying it, because I think so many of us are working for tomorrow. We're trying to make things work. This is where I see things in a year's time, and I'm setting these goals, and these are the kinds of benchmarks I want to reach. And we don't stop to actually enjoy the process, because once you get there, I mean, half the fun is the stories, and the most exciting stories are sometimes the ones that were the most cuck experiences, right?
Yeah.
So you got to enjoy them while you're in them. Don't wait until the end.
Absolutely. I've got to tell you about the time that I went to South Sudan and came back with malaria. That's a story for another interview next time. But that's it. Sometimes you get malaria on a shoot and you fucking roll.
Let me tell you something. Wild horses couldn't drag me to South Sudan, and you went there.
I had one of the best adventures of my life in that place. I went and found the tall basketball players of South Sudan, the 7-footers plus, and then I brought one of the players back here to play in a celebrity match with guys like Casper Njorvest. And the journalists loved him. They're like this lady from SABC. She was zoomed in. They zoomed out. She was standing on a chair, and she was still shorter than this 7'2" basketball.
Well, I have a friend who went to South Sudan, and he very nearly got shot.
Wow. Glad that wasn't me.
It's a tough place. It's a very, very tough place. All right, listen, dude. Love seeing you. Thank you for being on the show this morning. It's great to catch up, and we'll get together soon and try and stop Ben from being an old man.
That's it. Get him a dog for a change. I think he needs a dog in his life.
Yeah, I mean, this cat thing is just it's pathetic. Anyway, all right.
We'll see you, man.
Check you later. Thank you, Shaman.
Have a good one.
Cheers, man.
Bye, dude.
All right, everybody. Cool. We will see you on Monday if you are subscribed to the Gareth Cliff Daily Briefing. Remember, it's free for a couple of days, so get in there, sample it, tell us what you think, and give me some feedback. I mean, if you've been listening to this show for a long time, then I do want to hear what you have to say. There's a lot of people I couldn't care less to hear about, but you can get hold of me at gareth@garethcliff.com. Can't be that difficult to remember that email address. And check it out if you haven't already. We're on Apple and Spotify with the new podcast, and it is audio only, so at least you don't get to see my ugly face first thing in the morning, which will put you off your breakfast and maybe even make you crash your car. It would be much better to subscribe to this new audio podcast, and you get the whole world in less than 15 minutes. We started off and it was only 8 minutes. Today's episode, I think, is 11. So it's getting better, and we want to hear from you. Let us know what's up. All right, everybody. That's all we got time for today. See you on Friday next week. Ciao.